My stepdaughter and my wife insulted and mocked me in front of my friends at a party because I refused to buy my stepdaughter a $7,000 designer dress. My wife said, "She's the princess and must be served all the time." I was surprised to hear that from my wife. I slowly turned and left to the house. What happened next was rather unexpected. I will tell you everything. First, let me quickly thank you for your continuous support. This means a lot to us. If you enjoy the stories we share, kindly subscribe to this channel. It will be great if you can leave a comment on which city you are watching from. We might just give you a shout out in our next story. Today's special shout out goes to Kevin Gray from New York. We are glad you enjoy our stories. Now let's go deeper into the story. They say you don't notice how much of yourself you're giving away until someone laughs in your face while they take the last piece. That moment came for me on a Saturday evening, standing in my own backyard, surrounded by people I thought respected me. I had spent weeks organizing that little get-together, grilled steaks, soft jazz, fairy lights hanging from the patio rafters. I wanted something simple, warm. I wanted to feel like I belonged to a family, not just a household. But that feeling died the moment my stepdaughter, Lexi, announced in front of a dozen of my friends that I was too broke to buy her a $7,000 designer dress. And when my wife, Sharon, threw her head back and laughed. Well, she is the princess, and she must be served, right? That's when I stopped feeling like a husband, like a father, like a man in his own home. I stood there, frozen. The kind of frozen where you feel heat crawling up your neck, but your limbs won't move. I looked around at my friends, Jim, who'd helped me re-roof the garage, Tanya, who I once drove to the ER when her son had a fever, and Marcus, who had watched me navigate stepfatherhood with more patience than I ever knew I had. They all looked down, awkwardly sipping their drinks, pretending they hadn't heard the sting in Sharon's voice. Or maybe they had, and they just didn't want to be the ones to confirm that what I felt was real, that this wasn't just a joke gone wrong. It was contempt hiding behind expensive perfume and lip gloss. I didn't say a word. I just turned around, walked back into the house, and closed the sliding door behind me. I heard laughter continuing outside, shallow and forced, like they didn't want to admit the host had just left his own party. I climbed the stairs slowly, not because I was tired, but because my legs felt heavy with everything I'd been carrying. Years of compromises. Years of saying yes when I wanted to say we can't afford that. Years of watching Lexi sneer at me behind Sharon's back and Sharon pretending not to notice. Upstairs, I sat on the edge of the bed we once shared and looked around. The closet door was open. Lexi's shopping bags were piled in the corner, tags still on them. Dresses, shoes, accessories. Thousands of dollars I had spent so she could feel loved. I remember thinking, maybe if I just give a little more, she'll soften. But giving didn't bring love, it just fed the monster. And Sharon? She used to call me the rock of the house. But somewhere along the way, she started looking at me like I was just the foundation she walked on, not the man who built the life under her feet. I went into the office and pulled out the file I kept for just in case. Divorce papers. I had drafted them months ago, but never signed. That night, I signed them with a hand that didn't shake. It felt mechanical, almost detached, like my heart had left the room and left my body to handle the logistics. Then I started packing. Not my things, theirs. Her bags. Lexi's shoes. Jewelry. Anything they could claim I bought for them. I placed it by the front door. I didn't care if it made me look cruel. I cared that I no longer looked like a fool. I had just finished taping the last box shut when I heard their voices. Car doors slamming. Laughter. Keys jingling. The front door opened, and Sharon called out, "Babe?" That was rude, disappearing like that. You could have at least laughed along. When they walked in and saw the boxes, the laughter died instantly. "What the hell is this?" Sharon asked, her voice sharp with disbelief. Lexi scoffed behind her. "Are you seriously being this dramatic?" I stood up, handed Sharon the envelope with the divorce papers, and said calmly, "This is me choosing myself." Sharon looked stunned. "You're overreacting." "It was a joke." "No," I said, finally letting the words come out in the open air where they belonged. "It was disrespect. And you've been showing me that for a long time. Tonight just made it official." Lexi rolled her eyes. "Oh my God, you're actually going through with this? Over a dress." I turned to her, meeting her glare with something colder. It was never just about the dress. It's the way you treat people, the way your mother enables it. I'm done funding your delusions. Sharon stepped closer, tears welling up but not falling. She always did that, got emotional when money stopped flowing. Please, don't do this in front of her. She's old enough to insult me in front of guests. She's old enough to see the consequences, I said. They stood there for a long time. Sharon eventually picked up her phone and stormed outside to call someone, probably her sister. Lexi mumbled something under her breath and followed. I watched them through the window, pacing, shouting, trying to regain control. But the power they once had over me, it was gone. And for the first time in years, the house felt mine again. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in the living room with the lights off, staring at the front door, not waiting for them to come back in, but waiting for the silence to settle in my bones, waiting to feel the peace that only comes after a storm you finally decide to walk out of. I knew there would be backlash, that the fallout would hit hard, but at least now, I was no longer pretending to be okay. I had chosen myself, and there was no going back. The next morning, the house felt like a church after a funeral, quiet, heavy, full of things unsaid. Their boxes still sat by the front door like ghosts of a family that never truly existed. I made coffee just for myself for the first time in years, and I didn't set out 3 mugs like I used to. It hit me then. How many of my daily rituals weren't habits, they were chains. I sat at the kitchen table, nursing that 1 cup of coffee, and stared at the empty chair across from me. Sharon used to sit there, scrolling on her phone, ignoring half the things I said unless they involved credit cards or calendar invites. Lexi would be at the island, demanding I pay for some influencer's makeup line she just had to have. For the first time in a long time, there was no buzzing, no whining, no performance. Just quiet. Just me. And it was terrifying, but also a little beautiful. Around noon, the call started. First, it was Sharon's sister, Lisa. She didn't ask what happened. She didn't ask if I was okay. She went straight into accusations. You're throwing away a marriage over one little joke? You embarrassed her by putting her stuff out like she was trash. Is that how you treat family? I almost laughed. Family. That word had been stretched, bruised, and torn in our house until it barely meant anything. I said nothing, just hung up. Minutes later came a text from Sharon. We need to talk. You're being impulsive. I didn't respond. Silence was my answer now. And silence says a hell of a lot more than any angry word ever could. Later that afternoon, Marcus came by. I hadn't told him anything, but he must have sensed the shift. He didn't ask to come in. He just stood on the porch, looking at the boxes with a slow shake of his head. You good? He asked. That's the kind of friendship we had. No speeches, just space to tell the truth if I wanted to. I nodded, but my face must have said otherwise. I opened the door wider, and we sat in the living room like old men too tired to lie anymore. You taught them how to treat you, Marcus said, sipping the beer I handed him. Now you're unteaching them. That's not cruelty. That's clarity. I looked at him, my throat tight. What if I waited too long? What if I already showed them it was okay to walk all over me? And now they're just mad I took the rug out. He leaned forward. Man, if someone only respects you when they're scared to lose you, they never respected you to begin with. They just liked the benefits. That hit hard, because I knew he was right. Deep down, I had felt it for years. The way Sharon used sweet talk only when she wanted something. The way Lexi weaponized her daughter title while never once calling me dad. I was a bank account, a chauffeur, an emotional punching bag, and I accepted it because I thought sacrificing myself was love. It wasn't. It was self-abandonment disguised as loyalty. That evening, Sharon and Lexi returned, not with apologies, but with an audience. Sharon's mother, who had always treated me like an outsider, stormed into the driveway like she owned the deed. This is disgusting behavior, Paul, she snapped before I could even say hello. You're punishing your wife and child for asking you to step up. Real men provide. I stepped out onto the porch, calm but firm. Real women don't humiliate their partners in front of friends, I replied. And Lexi is not a child. She's a young woman who thinks respect is optional. That's not how I live. Lexi rolled her eyes, arms folded, jaw clenched. You're just mad because we made you look small in front of your little barbecue buddies. I walked down the steps, stood eye level with her, and said, "No, Lexi, I'm not mad. I'm awake. And for the first time in years, I see exactly who I've been living with." Sharon looked panicked then, probably realizing the calm in my voice meant I wasn't just blowing off steam. I was done. The kind of done you don't walk back from. "Can we please go inside and talk?" she asked, quieter this time. "No," I said. "You lost the right to privacy when you turned my dignity into a punchline." Her mother scoffed, grabbed a suitcase, and huffed toward her car. Sharon and Lexi followed, Lexi throwing one last look over her shoulder. I didn't break, didn't call out, didn't feel the need to soften the moment. Once the driveway cleared, I went inside, sat on the couch, and took a long breath. Not a dramatic one, just a real one. The kind that fills your lungs after years of shallow, anxious breathing. That night, I laid in bed and thought about all the dinners I paid for, all the trips I funded, all the birthdays I planned with care. They were never about money. They were about wanting to be part of a family. But what I learned was, you can't buy your way into someone's heart. And no amount of generosity can earn you genuine love if people see you as a transaction, not a person. I also thought about the boy I used to be. The one who watched his own parents scream through closed doors. Who promised himself he'd build a home full of laughter and mutual respect. I kept that promise for a while, but it wasn't mutual. And a home built on one-sided effort eventually collapses under its own weight. Still, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't punch walls or throw things. I just existed peacefully in my decision. And that was new for me. It was quiet. It was lonely. But it was mine. 3 days after I kicked them out, I realized how small the world gets when you stop paying everyone's way. Calls I used to get regularly, casual invites from friends of Sharon's, quick check-ins from her family, suddenly stopped. And the ones that did come, they weren't about how I was doing. They were about how dare I humiliate a young girl over a dress. Lexi, it seemed, had already rewritten the story. I was a bitter, controlling stepfather who exploded over a harmless joke. Sharon added her own spin, posting vague updates online, pictures of her crying, hashtags like #Haleftis and #SingleMomStrong. It was a PR campaign disguised as heartbreak. I didn't respond publicly. Not at first. I thought maybe if I kept my head down, the storm would pass. But silence, as I was learning, leaves a vacuum, and someone will always fill it with their version of the truth. One morning, I opened Facebook and saw a post shared over 100 times. Sharon had uploaded a photo of Lexi looking heartbroken, captioned, "No child deserves to be abandoned because she asked for a dress on her birthday. Money doesn't buy love. Real fathers don't walk away." I stared at the screen for a long time. The words burned, not because they were true, but because of how easily people believed them. The comments came in droves. Friends I'd grilled burgers for. Relatives I'd helped move. Strangers who knew nothing about me. Calling me cheap, abusive, emotionally unavailable. I could almost hear Sharon's voice behind the curtain of it all. Carefully worded, strategically emotional, just enough to stir pity without telling the whole story. That evening, Marcus came over again. He didn't knock this time, just walked in and sat beside me on the couch. "You see it?" he asked. I nodded. "She's playing the long game. Sympathy pays better than honesty." I turned toward him, my jaw clenched. "I can't just let her paint me like this." "Then don't," he said, sliding his phone onto the coffee table. "You want people to know what really happened? Then tell them. Just once. Tell the truth and walk away. Let the right ones find it." It took me another day to build up the nerve. But eventually, I sat down and typed out a single, measured post. No name-calling, no theatrics, just truth. I didn't leave my wife and stepdaughter because of a dress. I left because I was mocked, dismissed, and treated like a wallet instead of a person. I paid for everything, supported every dream, and asked only for basic respect in return. I was humiliated in my own home, and instead of an apology, I got spin. So here's mine. I chose myself. I still wish them well. But I won't be silent about why I left. Not anymore. The post didn't go viral, but it hit home where it needed to. A few old friends messaged me, saying they'd always wondered why Sharon treated me like an afterthought. One even said, "Man, I used to think you were just quiet. Now I know you were trying not to break. That meant more than I expected. Not validation, but recognition. I hadn't imagined it all. I wasn't crazy. A week later, I saw her again. Sharon. She showed up at my job, unannounced, waiting outside like some slow-burning fuse. I was locking up when I spotted her leaning against her car, sunglasses on, arms folded. "We need to talk," she said. "No, you need to talk." "I'm good," I replied, brushing past her. But she followed. "You made us look bad." "Me? Lexi, we're getting hate messages. You think that's fair?" I stopped, turning to face her fully. "You humiliated me in front of people I care about, then lied to the internet about why I left. You made you look bad." I just stopped covering for it. Tears formed again. But still, they felt more like strategy than sorrow. "I messed up, okay? But you didn't have to go nuclear." I stepped closer, voice low. "You want to talk about nuclear?" Nuclear is raising a girl to believe money equals love and calling her a princess while she insults the man paying the bills. Nuclear is watching me be disrespected, then laughing along. What you call messing up, I call a pattern, and I'm not in it anymore. She fell silent, biting her lip, her shoulders shaking like maybe. For the first time, it was hitting her. Not what she lost, but that I really wasn't coming back. "Is there anything I can say?" she asked, almost whispering. "Yeah," I said. "You can say goodbye." I left her standing there in the parking lot, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. And I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel cruel. I just felt finished. That night, I deleted the post. Not because I regretted it, but because it had done its job. I didn't need to defend myself anymore. The people who mattered knew the truth, and the ones who didn't, I didn't need them. Back home, I poured a glass of bourbon, sat on the back deck, and watched the sky fade into orange. It was the first time in years I'd sat there alone, not to escape, not to numb out, but to be still, to breathe, to be. I was no longer the man who got laughed at in his own backyard. I was the man who walked away from the circus, even if he built the tent. You don't realize how much of your life you've put on hold until you start living again. It wasn't sudden. It didn't feel triumphant. But little by little, the quiet that used to feel suffocating started to feel like air. I began cooking again. Real meals, not just microwaved leftovers scarfed down between work and tension. I spent Saturday mornings fixing up the garage, finding old tools I forgot I owned, wondering when I stopped building anything just for me. I even picked up running again, the same trail I used to jog before Sharon moved in. I hadn't touched those sneakers in 4 years. It was like waking up in someone else's body, the one I'd buried beneath compromise. One afternoon, I was cleaning out the shed when I found an old box marked "Before Sharon." Inside were things I hadn't thought about in years: a baseball glove from college, faded Polaroids from road trips, a few letters, and a card from someone named Angela. My heart kicked hard at that name. Angela was the girl I let get away before Sharon. We were never officially a thing, but we shared a closeness you can't fake. She'd been there when my father died. We used to talk for hours about everything and nothing. She'd moved away, and I let the distance grow into silence. But now, holding her card, with that looping script and little son doodled in the corner, something stirred. I dug out my old phone, found her number, unchanged after all these years, and sent a simple message. "Hey, it's Paul. Long time. I could use a real conversation. No strings." She replied in 10 minutes flat. "About time. Coffee." Angela hadn't changed much. Same sharp eyes, same wit, same ability to cut through my walls without even trying. We sat in the corner of a quiet cafe, and she let me talk. Really talk. I told her everything. The dress, the party, the silence, the shame, the divorce. She didn't flinch, didn't sugarcoat. When I finished, she sipped her tea, set the cup down, and said something that cut deeper than any insult Sharon ever threw at me. "You didn't lose a wife. You lost someone who got used to your silence as permission." That line stayed with me for days. She continued, softer now. "Love without boundaries isn't love. It's a loophole for bad behavior. You thought giving meant they'd stay. But people who only love what you give them don't love you. They love the version they can manipulate." For the first time in weeks, I felt understood. Not pitted, not praised, just seen. Over the next few weeks, Angela became a kind of lighthouse. Not a love interest. Not yet. Maybe never. But a reminder of the man I was before I turned into a financial safety net with a pulse. She challenged me, pushed me to take inventory of my life, and most importantly, never let me apologize for setting boundaries. That kind of support, it doesn't shout. It steadies. Then, one Sunday evening, came a knock at my door. Not frantic, not angry, just hesitant. I opened it to find Lexi standing there. Her makeup was smudged, her hair was pulled back messily, and her phone trembled in her hand like she'd been gripping it for hours. I hadn't seen her since the day I put her boxes outside. For a second, I thought maybe, just maybe, this was it. The apology. The long overdue realization. "Hey," she mumbled. I nodded. "Lexi." She looked past me into the house. "Can I come in?" I hesitated but stepped aside. She walked in slowly, like the furniture might bite. She stood near the kitchen island, same spot she used to throw her bags, and finally said, "I've been couch surfing. Mom's with Grandma, but I couldn't take it anymore." I crossed my arms. "I'm sorry to hear that." She looked up, eyes finally meeting mine. "I'm not here to fight. I'm here to ask if you'll still pay my phone bill." I tried to get it switched to Mom's plan, but she said you locked it. I felt the air leave my lungs. Not because I was surprised, but because I'd dared to hope. I thought maybe she'd grown. Maybe the distance had given her perspective. But no, she wasn't here for clarity. She was here for convenience. "You showed up to ask for money," I said, not a question. She frowned. "I mean, yeah, but I thought you'd at least hear me out." "Did you come here to apologize?" I asked calmly. She didn't answer, just looked down, then back up. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. It was just a dress. I stepped back, the disappointment burning fresh. "It was never about the dress, Lexi. It was about the way you treated me. The way your mother cheered you on while you humiliated me in front of people I care about." She folded her arms. "You act like I'm evil. I was a kid. You were 17. Old enough to know the difference between asking and demanding. Old enough to know when you're being cruel." The silence stretched long and heavy between us. Finally, she scoffed. "So that's it. I don't get a second chance. You get all the chances in the world, Lexi, but not on my dime. Not without respect." She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just turned and walked out. No goodbye. No thank you. Just the sound of her boots on the porch and the door clicking shut behind her. I stood there for a long time, staring at the empty doorway. Not angry. Not sad. Just hollow. I thought I'd feel vindicated, but all I felt was tired. Tired of hoping for people to become who they never were. Later that night, I texted Angela. She came by. "Still doesn't get it." She replied, "She will. One day. But you don't have to wait for that day to heal." I lay in bed thinking about that. About how much energy I'd spent trying to earn love that should have been given freely. I thought being generous would make me indispensable. But the truth is, people don't value what they expect by default. And the moment you stop giving, their real feelings rise to the surface. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't broken. I was just done. They always say people show you who they are during a breakup, but they never warn you about who they become once they realize they've lost control. Sharon didn't just grieve the end of our marriage. She tried to rewrite it. Not just with her friends or her family, but publicly. The shift was subtle at first. Cryptic quotes on social media. Passive-aggressive stories about narcissists who abandoned their responsibilities. Then came the pictures. Lexi looking sad by a window, Sharon smiling bravely with captions like, "Starting over." For her. At first, I ignored it. Let her have her narrative. But it was what came next that forced my hand. It was a Thursday afternoon when Marcus sent me the screenshot. Sharon had gone live on Instagram. 45 minutes of tears, half-truths, and weaponized vulnerability. I watched the replay in silence, my heart pounding with a mixture of rage and disbelief. "I gave up everything to be with him," she said to the camera, mascara streaking down her cheeks. And the moment things got uncomfortable, he kicked us out like we were trash. Over a dress. A birthday gift for a child who just wanted to feel special. That's the kind of man he is. The comments poured in. Women calling me a misogynist. Men calling me weak. Strangers telling her to take me for everything I had. But what broke me wasn't the lies. It was the betrayal. Even after all that, I had never spoken ill of her, never aired her dirt. But now, she was turning my dignity into digital content. Angela called me that night. She didn't say, "I told you so." She didn't need to. "You ready to fight back?" she asked softly. "I'm tired," I admitted. "I know. But if you don't tell the truth, the lie wins by default." She was right. The next morning, I dressed carefully, buttoned down, clean shave, calm face. I wasn't going to match her theatrics. I wasn't going to cry on camera. I was going to speak plainly. Just once. And then I'd be done. I sat in my living room with the camera angled just right. No background clutter. No distractions. Just me. And I told the truth. This isn't easy for me. But I'm tired of watching a fictional version of my life play out online. I didn't leave over a dress. I left because I was publicly humiliated by the two people I loved the most. I gave everything, emotionally, financially, mentally, to a household that stopped seeing me as a partner and started treating me like an ATM. I was mocked in front of my friends, laughed at, dismissed, and instead of apologies, I got lies broadcast for sympathy points. I wish them well. I hope they heal. But I will not let someone else define my character just because I finally said no. I didn't check the views. I didn't read the comments. I posted it, then turned off my phone. That evening, I went for a long walk. The kind of walk where your legs move faster than your thoughts, and the air feels like it might finally carry some of the weight for you. When I came back, there were voicemails. The first was from Sharon's sister. "Okay, maybe I didn't know the full story. Still wish you handled it privately, but I get it now." The second was from Sharon. Slurred, late-night voice. "So you're a saint now, huh? Everyone's patting you on the back while we're left looking like villains? You think that's fair?" I deleted it without listening to the rest. The next day, the ripple effects reached my job. A client I'd worked with for years pulled me aside. "Saw your video. Brave stuff. Hope it didn't cost you too much." I nodded, unsure what to say. That was the weirdest part. People started looking at me differently. Not with pity, but with something closer to respect. Like I'd taken a bullet so they didn't have to. That weekend, Sharon showed up one last time. In person. No warning. She waited by my truck outside the grocery store. No makeup. No camera. Just Sharon. The real one. She walked up slowly, hands in her pockets. "I lost control," she said before I could say anything. "You did," I replied. I didn't know how else to feel powerful again. "That's not my responsibility anymore." She looked down at the pavement. "I thought if I made you look bad, maybe people wouldn't look too closely at what I did." I stayed quiet. "Lexi's staying with my mom full-time now. She won't even talk to me. Says I made it worse." "You did." There was a long pause. Then she said something that surprised me. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just want to say thank you. For the years you tried." I met her eyes. There was no anger there. No charm. Just a woman who finally realized she'd lost something she didn't know how to value. "You're welcome," I said. "And goodbye." I got in my truck and left her there. Not out of cruelty, but because closure doesn't always need a door to shut. It just needs the courage to stop waiting for one to open. Back home, I sat on the porch with a cold drink and thought about how fast love turns into leverage. About how people will twist the truth to avoid facing themselves. But also about how clarity, once earned, can't be stolen, not even by the loudest lie. I didn't regret posting the video. I didn't regret the silence before it. And most of all, I didn't regret leaving. What I regretted was staying so long I forgot I had the right to leave. You don't walk away from a family and return to silence. You return to yourself. And that's something nobody tells you. There's no fanfare, no applause, just the simple, unfamiliar stillness of a life that now belongs entirely to you. After the dust settled, after Sharon's last voicemail, after Lexi stopped calling, I finally stopped waiting for anyone to come knocking. And once that waiting ended, something else began. Something quieter, more honest. Not healing, not yet, but peace. The house stayed quiet, just the way I liked it. I found rhythm in the ordinary, washing dishes with the window open, folding my laundry without anyone digging through my drawers, choosing what to watch at night without eye rolls or complaints. And it was in that simplicity that I realized how exhausted I had been, not from the noise, but from the constant performance. I wasn't the provider anymore. I wasn't the buffer. I wasn't anyone's financial strategy. I was just Paul again. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. Angela and I kept in touch. We didn't label anything, didn't rush it. Sometimes she dropped by with dinner, and we'd sit on the porch watching the sun melt down the hill. Sometimes we didn't talk for days, but she always came with honesty, never expectations. And in a world that had demanded so much of me, that kind of gentle presence was like breathing air I didn't know I'd been missing. One evening, as we sat drinking tea, she asked me, "Do you ever miss them?" I took a long sip, watching the steam curl upward. "I miss who I thought they were," I said, "not who they turned out to be." Angela nodded, and I knew she understood. Love doesn't always leave with rage. Sometimes it leaves with a whisper and a weight off your chest. A few weeks later, I received a letter. Not an email, not a message. A real letter, handwritten, on plain paper. It was from Lexi. I sat on the porch and read it slowly, bracing for manipulation, for guilt, for another ask. But it wasn't that. It was short, honest, and, surprisingly, full of something I hadn't expected: regret. Paul, I was angry. I thought being a princess meant never saying sorry. I thought if I acted tough, I'd get what I wanted. I didn't realize I was burning bridges I couldn't rebuild. I saw the video. I read the comments. I know I hurt you. You didn't deserve that. I'm not asking for anything. Just wanted to say it. Lexi, I read it twice. Then a third time. My first instinct was to throw it out, to protect myself. But I didn't. I folded it carefully and put it in the drawer next to my bed. Not because I was opening a door, but because it mattered. Because somewhere inside that girl I tried to raise, something had finally clicked. The next morning, I wrote a reply. Short, honest, firm. Lexi, thank you for the letter. Apologies don't fix everything, but they're a start. I hope you keep growing. Take care. Paul, I didn't sign it, Dad. I didn't invite her over. But I sent it. Because while I closed the door on that chapter of my life, I didn't need to slam it shut forever. And that's the thing about healing. It doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. It means acknowledging what did and choosing to move forward without bitterness. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at Lexi. Not even at Sharon. They taught me hard lessons. They showed me the cost of staying silent, the weight of self-betrayal, and the power of finally standing up, not with fists, but with boundaries. I look back now and see a man who tried, who gave more than he should have, who stayed too long because he believed in the version of family he never had growing up. And I'm proud of that man, not for his endurance, but for the moment he finally said, enough. The yard grew quieter as the seasons changed. I planted new flowers where Sharon once insisted on that tacky garden gnome. I bought a fire pit and invited Marcus and Angela over one Saturday. We sat around the flame laughing, not over drinks or drama, but just being together. No demands, no tension, just warmth. I wasn't rebuilding the old life. I was building something new, one quiet decision at a time. And every now and then, when the night was still, I'd think about that party, that laugh, that sentence. She's the princess, and she must be served. And I'd remember how it felt to be humiliated, how it felt to walk away, and how it felt to finally put down the crown I never agreed to carry. I didn't leave because of a dress. I left because I finally realized I was the only one who ever showed up with love that didn't come with a price tag. And I never looked back. Have you ever stayed in something too long, hoping it would turn into the love you deserved? If you've ever had to walk away from people who only saw your worth in what you could give them, share your story in the comments. Let's talk about choosing peace over performance, about breaking free, even when it hurts. Because sometimes the most powerful form of love is the one you finally give yourself. If this story spoke to you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more true stories about choosing self-respect, setting boundaries, and finding your voice, no matter how late. See you soon in the next story.